Okay, here we go. So this is going to be a series of videos. Hopefully it'll have some impact with those who are willing to actually see that for what it is. Obviously, if you have a bias and a prejudice you're looking to take care of, again, please move on. There's no value for you here. So I always put that warning up at the beginning, but then, there's some people who just can't help themselves and they've just got to come in and be right. So, it's getting pretty tiring, guys. Anyway, so the first mental exercise we're going to do here, if you're in it to learn, is to now look at this image, right? And then when you see that badge that's on the side of that guy's shoulder, straight away, what does that tell you? Does that give you the idea that he is doing something that's morally right? And that's the real mental trick here, right? Because as soon as you see a badge that gives you an impression of that this individual has some sort of higher understanding of what the correct action, that's rightful is, because that's what it usually, stimulates or triggers a belief. As soon as you see some kind of insignia, right, then you're going to start thinking that there's something the matter with what the driver has done here, right? The one who's sitting in the vehicle. Immediately, you're going to think, well, that there's some fault that they've committed, and so this other guy is justified. That's the first thing you think. Now, I want you to look at the same picture and take away that insignia on the shoulder and just see it as an average, everyday Joe that's just got a lot of ammunition, right? He's got some big-ass weapons right there in his hands and on the side there, right? And he's just pointing a gun at somebody sitting in the car peacefully, has no weapons. What's the idea you're going to have now, right? So this is how we unpack the mental prison, right? It's really important to be able to look at the image as is without throwing your interpretation on it. And that's how mental control happens, is that it's all about getting you to believe certain symbols mean something that's valuable, that has merit, that has authority, all these ideas, and they change the way you see it. This is how the game is played. So that's the point. If you haven't figured it out by now, the videos I do is all about unpacking mental slavery, showing you how it's done. Okay, so it doesn't favor or discriminate yet. There's a lot of people that I get a lot of flack from saying that I'm actually discrediting, certain people, etc., etc. And the actual reality is that those who stand on the side of lies discredit themselves. All I'm doing is showing you objective truth. Whether you want to see it or not, that's up to you. And that's when people go, oh, it's just your opinion, etc. Okay, so here we go. We're going to listen to Larkin. He's going to give you a lot more explanation as to how this whole police idea that they actually have authority and what kind of psychopathy they're working from, what kind of people are attracted to becoming someone who's a police officer. It's going to give it a lot more clarity.
9 different times the cops illegally detained and interrogated him and searched him and robbed him a couple times. No probable cause, no reason to think he was doing anything, like good little power-happy fascists. And they would always surround him and call in another car, so there's 4 armed people surrounding somebody who they have no reason to think is a threat, and they're acting like gang members because they are gang members. Cops become cops. Once upon a time, and maybe still every once in a while, cops join up thinking they're going to be the good guys. But as far as I can tell, more often than not, cops join the gang called law enforcement for the same reason people join other gangs. Because they're cowards who feel weak and they want to feel power over other people, so they join a gang that has guns that gang up on people and threaten them and harass them.
Real basic psychology, guys. Okay, so if you feel weak alone and you're broken on the inside, you have this idea that you're not good enough, no one's ever shown you matter. One of the quickest ways to do it, the old bullied at school thing, is to go find a pack that you can associate with, and in that group, all of a sudden you start to grow in your sense of power, but it's always by force, right? So there's a real sickness there that hasn't been treated and has remained untreated. And the more videos we do on this, we'll start to unpack that a little bit deeper. Basically, this is someone who's attracted to a position where they carry weapons and they get to use them with impunity. That is someone who has severe mental illnesses. All right, let's listen on to what else there is to see here. think Mark Passio is going to do the next one.
Order followers are next, the least mature, and yet they're the most responsible. The absolutely most responsible people. Now, how could the least mature be the most responsible people? Well, it's true. These people are the people who have not grown up ever, okay? And yet, they're the most responsible for what's going on in the world. They actually create the police state. These children, who I'm going to put images up on the screen, and if you can just, when I put these images up, I just want you to look into their eyes, okay? And you tell me if these people aren't children. You tell me if you look in their eyes, look into the researchers' eyes I'll put up later, and compare them to these people's eyes. Because they say the eyes are the windows to the soul. You tell me if these aren't psychological children, okay? Now, there's the archetypal image of the abandoned child, okay? And here's the abandoned children who are trying to appeal to the approval of mommy and daddy. I want to appeal to the approval of daddy because mommy and daddy didn't pay enough attention to me in real life. So this is my surrogate family. I want to look all the same like a good little boy and girl that does what they're told on command, like a robot. On command like a robot. Look into the eyes of these people. Tell me you don't see psychological children. I'd tell you there's something wrong with you if you don't see it. Okay? Because you have to be completely unconscious not to see that these people have not grown up one iota from childhood. Not one. Yeah, though they're big and bad trying to take other people's rights away on command. Yeah. But here's what they really are, folks. We are the house slaves. We are the house slaves. No lower form of life than a house slave.
All right, that's really critical, guys. I'm hoping you're starting to understand how this all works, who's attracted to it, and what happens when these people who leave these positions, what do they do afterwards, right? And now you're about to see one in real time that's positioning themselves as the people's savior, right? Really critical. And then you're going to see some of the things he says.
Well, there's your problem, isn't it? Because do I trust any one of the police commissioners in this country? Not one bit. There are some assistant commissioners that I know personally that are straight shooters, and there's a lot of the coppers.
So he's just said he personally knows assistant commissioners. Really sit with that, guys. How would one who's supposedly meant to be for the people and liberating them, how all of a sudden did they have access to people high up in a criminal organization? Think about that. It's a really critical question to ask. He's given it up, guys. He's telling you.
That I know are right on side. They really are. And each state is very different. Many years ago, I ran leadership training for New South Wales Police Force. And every month I'd fly in and I'd be speaking to about 40-odd commissioned officers in New South Wales Police. And during that 12-month contract, I realized that these guys are a lot of solid operators. They believe in what is morally correct, and they're happy to do the right thing. And every interaction I've certainly had with New South Wales coppers, they're bloody brilliant. They really are.
Okay, you heard him just say that. These people are morally upright. Now, he needs to explain how, in one breath, right, he will say something to do with, if you had a neighbor that was abusing, and molesting a 3-year-old girl, and you saw it happen and you did nothing, that's on you, right? That's a call on your immorality for letting it happen. Now, each and every one of these guys that he says is morally upright, that they're upright and forthright, and they're morally correct. How can that happen when their entire structure is designed to enforce slavery? And if they themselves, which is very hard to believe that they haven't been involved in that because the job requires it, but let's just humor him, physically didn't go and pull anyone over ever and extort money out of them for some made-up thing that the politicians invent, right? If they did not do that, but yet witnessed all their other members doing that, are they not guilty of the same crime by letting it happen? Or if they've witnessed a bashing, right, some kind of brutality, and didn't arrest any of their fellow members for doing that very thing which violates rights, are they not guilty? I mean, really think about the principle here, right? How does he apply it in one case and ignores it in another? That's a massive contradiction. Now, another thing, did he not just come from the military? Has he not spent, like he keeps bragging, 23 years? Has he not been a 23-year-old order follower for 23 years? He's been dragging his heels and his knuckles doing what his masters tells him, his political masters, right? Yet they all are meant to take an oath where they're not subordinate to the politicians, but it's called the armed services. So it's a service. How can you be providing the people a service if you're going over into other lands to fight wars for criminals? How can you be doing that? He's a paid assassin, right? Now, all of a sudden, he's going to be your freedom leader, right? And he's going to move you, like he keeps saying, into this moral Christian Western democracy. He doesn't have a clue about what morality is. Totally clueless. He's just shown you there the contradiction. This is what people pass or accept as someone who's morally forthright without taking a proper look at the principles that are in place here. And he's signaling to you, right? He's signaling to you right here what his actual intention is, and it's to let his mates off the hook. It's right there in front of you.
These are the house slaves. We'd rather enslave our own species, and ourselves included, rather than grow up, develop real courage, and think for ourselves.
That's it right there, right in a nutshell, guys. And if you, as an individual, are still believing that the current structure that's been going on for thousands of years is what's required for social order, then that means you are enabling more misery and suffering by the sheer fact that you're not willing to see the true nature with all the evidence there is. That's something that each individual requires to take personal responsibility for. And until you're willing to break free from that mental prison, you are giving your energy to more enslavement. And so if you are at that point where you are willing to actually do something different, that's not the same as you've ever done before, but something new, where you stand up for the truth as it is, not as you want it to be, then you have recourse. And I'm about to show you what that is, how you call out the lie and start dissolving the very structure by taking your energy away from it, withdrawing your consent to criminality, and then let the weight of that monolith fall on itself, right? And this is one of the ways you can do it. Alright, here it is, guys. If you're serious about taking action and adding your weight to influencing the course of freedom, it's a real easy one for you to do. All the work's been done for you. It's really simple. Just go to the Magna Carta 1215 site, click on News and Articles. This one will be at the top. It's police call to action, police letter campaign. Then you just follow down, and you'll see it's got it all explained. What it's all about. There's a 12-point letter. There's even a video here for you about how to create what's called Royal Mail. So there's a higher likelihood it gets delivered, and you can track it. Right, so you've got evidence it's been delivered. Here it says this flyer has a secondary function that is even more powerful. It can be hand delivered to the mailbox of any police officers you know. Just sit with that impact for a moment. And here is the actual cover letter that goes with it. There's no name required on this, right? It's just download, print, and here's the actual one to download. That's the actual 12 points, which is right here. There's an image of it. So I'm only going to read you a few points here about what's on it. Question and information for police officers. Are you aware that much of your daily shift is spent in criminal activity or supporting the criminal activity of others? Do you understand what the implications of this will be on your personal and family life when it becomes known to the general public, as it will? Are you aware of the extreme seriousness of betraying daily the sanctity of your constable's oath? Everything hinges on this, guys, the constable's oath, right? This is where they can't hide no matter what they try. This is the linchpin that takes the whole system down, and we are letting them know that we understand it and that we're coming after them for it. That's where they panic, guys. And if every single station across the country gets one of these, they're going to be in sheer panic. And the best part is, like I said, it's totally anonymous. If you're afraid that you're going to have some kind of retribution, there's no way it can be done, right? Because no one's name's on this, right? And if they're getting nailed with this, it's just coming piled in, This is when it gets huge, right? Are you aware that such betrayal is classified as high treason under the law you are sworn to uphold, which is the Constitution for the entire British Commonwealth, and carries the most severe penalties under the law? Do you realise that your constable's oath means your role is delegated to you by the monarch to protect individual rights? That's the true nature of why we even created police constables. From all who seek to violate them, including the legislative branch of government, as the monarch is duty bound by oath to defend people's individual right to self-determination from parliamentary tyranny. That's the role of the monarch, and that's who the police are supposed to take allegiance to, because it says Our Lady the Queen, or Sovereign Lady the Queen, or Sovereign the King, or something like that. It says some version of that. That means that they are subordinate to the monarch's constitutional coronation oath. And their coronation oath swears to uphold individual rights. And one of those ways it does it is to prevent any kind of governmental tyranny. It's critical. This is about understanding this, like backwards and forwards. Are you aware that your oath of office is the thin blue line that separates lawful criminal behaviour, and that without your oath, adherence to your oath, you no longer police by consent? That's critical, guys, because they come and say that out loud. Alright, so there's really good stuff in here. It goes after them and lets them know about what just doing their job and what's going to be for their family, because the income and assets they've acquired through their actions will eventually be classified as proceeds of crime, which will be confiscated from their surviving family members. So what's the impact on their family going to be like? That's when you're really getting into the back of their minds, guys, where they cannot stop thinking about this. That's the beauty of this. So if you're serious about affecting your freedom, these guys are the ones who are standing in the way. They are what's called the house slaves, right? They come from the people, but they're willing to work against the very people they come from just to get a few extra comforts and move out of the field into the house of their masters, and be their lapdogs. That's what these people are, and this is what we're letting them know is coming from them for what they did to their very own people that have trusted them to protect them. Okay, so if you're of that mind, guys, there's plenty of resources on the Magna Carta 1215 site. This is just one, so I'd highly encourage you to go and jump on and share with everyone else that you know who's of that same mind.